Okay, let's just jump right in. We've all heard those stories, the whisperings about people who have these seemingly impossible recoveries.
Right. Not through standard medicine, but something else.
Exactly. But today, we're diving into sources that detail something much more specific and, frankly, much more challenging to the modern mind. We're talking about profound, instantaneous physical healing.
And not just a gradual improvement.
No, not at all. We are talking about complete physical transformations, and the most incredible part is they're documented by a medical doctor himself.
That's the key here. Our source material today comes from the observations in really the reflections of Dr. Mustafa Mahmoud, and he was this fascinating figure, a physician, but also a deep philosopher.
Which gives his accounts this incredible tension, doesn't it?
It does.
Mm.
So our mission in this deep dive is to dissect three really specific, extraordinary stories of recovery. But more than that, we're going to analyze why he believed they happened.
And this all centers around the concept of sila, or prayer.
Yes, which he argues is, well, fundamentally misunderstood by so many people who practice it. He calls it a great jewel. And we need to figure out what he means by that. What is this mechanism for healing he's describing?
And what I find so compelling is that he applies a clinical perspective to what, on the surface, just sounds like a miracle. We're drawing right from his own experiences, and we're starting with the most dramatic one.
An account he encountered himself.
Yes, in Rabat, Morocco, all the way back in 1968.
And this story is about a French woman, a European convert to Islam, who he met when she was around 60 years old. Her whole journey started about 30 years before that on what was supposed to be just a normal tourist trip.
Just a vacation with her friends, and this is where her entire life just pivots. One night, in her hotel, she has this incredibly vivid, striking dream.
In the dream, she describes seeing this man of just profound beauty. He was dressed in white, and she said she just knew intuitively that it was the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
And what happens in the dream?
He presents her with a Musaf, which is a physical copy of the Quran. That's the central action.
So she wakes up, and she is just completely shaken, trembling, with a conviction she can't ignore. And she wasn't even a religious person before this.
Not at all. But she felt this immediate, overwhelming sense that the dream was a spiritual order in order for her to stay in Morocco and actually study Islam.
So she tells her French friends, who you can imagine react exactly as you'd expect.
Oh, completely. They just dismissed it, called them confused dreams, told her to forget about it, come back home.
But she didn't.
She was resolute. The tourist group left, and she stayed. She dedicated years of her life to studying Arabic, to studying Islamic doctrine, and she eventually converted and became part of the community there.
Okay, so now let's fast forward. 10, maybe 15 years into her new life as a Muslim, this is where the real test arrives.
She's bathing one day and discovers a tumor in her breast, a hard, fixed lump.
And she goes to a doctor.
She does. And the diagnosis from the surgeon was unequivocal: late-stage breast cancer.
But here's where the medical impossibility really starts to take shape.
It had already spread.
Deeply. It had infiltrated the muscles underneath, the chest wall itself. The surgeon's prognosis was absolute. He said there was no hope, and because it had spread so far, it was completely inoperable.
So we have a documented terminal illness, and just at this moment, her old friends from France decide to come back for a visit.
Talk about timing. They hear about her illness, and for them, this is their I told you so moment.
Right. They see it as vindication.
Exactly. They immediately attacked her faith. They said her illness was the result of her dervish delusion, her spiritual path. They demanded she come back to Paris for, real treatment.
So she's facing this terminal diagnosis and at the same time this intense pressure from her old life.
Yeah.
But she refuses to go.
She stands firm. And that moment, that absolute emotional and physical rock bottom, is what sets the stage for what happened next.
The night of the healing. Yes. And this is so critical. She wasn't just, reciting words. She reached a point of absolute intense supplication. She's on her prayer rug, weeping, speaking directly to God as if he were standing right in front of her.
And her grief was fueled by her family mocking her, right? Blaming her faith for her death.
That was the core of it. But what's fascinating, and this connects to Dr. Mahmoud's later analysis, is how she described the prayer itself, the quality of it.
What did she say?
She insisted that she prayed with this unique sensation that every single cell in her body was praying with her, a state of complete spiritual dissolution.
Wow. Total physical and mental immersion.
Total. And in the middle of all this weeping and concentration, she just falls into a deep sleep.
And next morning?
The next morning, she wakes up. She reaches for her chest, And the hard tumor,
Mm.
it's just gone
Gone.
completely. The area was normal, soft, as if it had never been there.
So she goes back to the doctor. I can't even imagine his reaction.
Utterly bewildered. The source says he pulls out his official medical ledger, his own detailed record of this late-stage invasive cancer that had spread to the muscle and chest wall. He's looking at his own notes,
And then he examines her.
and he can find absolutely nothing. Physically, she's completely healthy.
Wait, so Dr. Mahmoud is arguing that a physical tumor, confirmed by a surgeon, documented in a ledger, just vanished overnight, with no intervention at all.
He's not trying to explain it with conventional science. He presents it as evidence of a power that operates beyond the material world. And the lesson he took from her, from this French woman, was her own summary of it all.
What does she say?
She said, "You Muslims have a great jewel whose value you do not know, Islam." For her, the power was real, miraculous, and something she felt that even its adherents took for granted.
And this wasn't temporary.
No, the cure was complete. It lasted at least another 10 years with no recurrence, a permanent reversal.
So Dr. Mahmoud uses this incredible story as a kind of launch pad, doesn't he?
He does. He uses this externally verified account to introduce his own personal experiences, which he sees as supporting evidence. Because it's one thing to witness this as a doctor.
But it's another thing entirely when you're the one facing a crisis.
Exactly. And that's where his skepticism was really put to the test.
So let's turn to his own life. This is around 1969. He experiences this terrifying medical issue himself, a kidney stone.
And it wasn't a small one. He had debilitating back pain. The diagnosis was a substantial kidney stone. And crucially, this was before modern treatments like lithotripsy existed.
Or the only option.
Was major open kidney surgery, an operation he, as a doctor, dreaded.
He knew exactly what that surgery and recovery would involve, and his reaction was just extreme terror.
But that terror pushed him into that same state of focus we saw with the French woman. He engaged in this intense, absolute prayer, asking his creator to find another way out. He sought that same Dua ben Kamil, that complete dissolution.
So his will just vanished into reliance on God.
Yes, even while he was taking the prescribed medical dilators. He says it was a state where every cell in his body was crying out.
And the outcome?
After exactly half an hour of this intense state, he felt a sudden urge to use the restroom. He passed a full liter of fluid that he described quite graphically as having the color and texture of tahini.
Like a thick paste.
Exactly. The source says the large hard stone had been completely pulverized, not broken into painful fragments, but turned into a fine powder. The problem just vanished. Permanently.
A 30-minute period of devotional focus and a complete physical reversal. It's astounding.
And his second personal story is maybe even more terrifying because it was medically a black box. A digestive illness he got while he was in Tripoli.
This one was bizarre.
It was a functional disease. His body's entire absorption process just stopped. Food passed through him completely whole. He describes seeing radishes, carrots, tomatoes just passing through unchanged.
The physical toll must have been immediate.
Catastrophic. He lost 10 kilograms in 5 days. And as a doctor, he was doubly terrified. This kind of functional failure was unknown, untreatable. Based on everything he'd ever studied, there was no solution in his books.
So once again, he's in a state of complete helplessness.
Which seems to be the prerequisite. He reached that same point of total reliance on God. He just repeated the phrase, La ilaha illa illallah, there is no God but. For hours, his body trembling until he finally fell asleep from exhaustion.
And he woke up.
Completely normal. The condition was gone. Instantly. So these three stories, the cancer, the stone, the digestive failure, they become his empirical evidence for a much larger argument.
And that brings us to the core of it all, the philosophical part. Dr. Mahmoud's analysis of why this happens. What are these people accessing that most don't?
It's his analysis of Salah itself. He stresses that true prayer is so much more than just movements and words. It requires khushu, this profound state of reverence and humility.
But the operational component, the mechanism, is something he calls tajarrud.
Total, absolute detachment from the world. You have to literally cast aside all your worries, your problems, your anxieties, and leave them behind you before you even begin to pray.
It's fascinating that desperation hitting rock bottom seems to be what allows people to achieve this. But how do you do that in a normal life?
Well, he gives it this powerful analogy. He references the story of Moses entering a sacred space, where the condition was removing the sandals, kala al-nalain.
Right.
He argues that's a metaphor for the mind. The sandals are your mental burdens, your debt, your schedule, your fear of getting sick. You have to discard them. Leave them outside the sacred space of that connection.
So tajawud is like a spiritual system reset. You're leaving all that earthly noise completely outside the equation.
And that's when the opening phrase of the prayer, Allahu Akbar, God is greater, gains its true power. When you say it, it has to internally, practically silence every other competing thought. It has to be the only truth in your consciousness.
When that happens, you get this inner tranquility, this deep relaxation.
A deep systemic relaxation combined with a transcendent connection. And he believes that is the root of the physiological change.
He even compares this directly to secular techniques like transcendental meditation.
He does. He acknowledges TM has benefits, lowering blood pressure or cholesterol, but he argues that the power of Salah, when it's done properly, is just vastly greater. He literally says it's 1,000 times more potent.
That is an extraordinary claim. So what's the fundamental difference? Why would one be so much more powerful?
And this is the absolute cornerstone of his analysis, the crucial distinction. TM, he says, draws its strength from the deep self, from your own inner resources.
Which are finite.
Exactly. The self is needy, limited, trapped by the physics of our world. Salah, on the other hand, involves a total exit from the self. You leave your ego, your problems, your limitations behind, and you open up to the infinite, unlimited power of the Creator.
So if the self is the barrier, then detachment tajarrud is the key to removing it from the equation. The cure isn't unlocked by focusing inward, but by casting the self completely aside.
Precisely. It's an act of connection, not self-reliance. That total exit from the self is what unlocks the secrets he's describing. It shifts the source of power from the finite human mind to the infinite source of all creation. That's the jewel. So in the end, Dr. Moden concludes that these healings are signs. He calls them karamat, or divine blessings, and they're possible for those rare people who reach these highest degrees of spiritual clarity and detachment. Big takeaway for us is that we often fail to grasp the true transformative potential of this kind of focused devotion.
So the source gives us 3 dramatic, medically improbable examples. Late-stage cancer vanishing, a massive kidney stone dissolving into powder, a functional illness reversing instantly, all through this radical spiritual shift. For you, the listener, the knowledge we've unpacked here really raises a profound question. What happens when total reliance and complete mental detachment are achieved? Is the healing we've talked about here strictly a sign of a transcendent spiritual connection? Or is it perhaps the ultimate undiscovered manifestation of the mind-body connection, something that can only be unlocked when you reach that point of absolute egoless focus? It's something to consider as you reflect on the power of focus and detachment in your own life.